Atlanta Forum is about our community. It is a program where concerned citizens exchange ideas and information. The moderator is Zeke Siegel, former Network News Bureau Chief and currently journalist in residence at Bernal College.
His Honor, the Mayor, Andrew Young, our guest at this session of Atlanta Forum, or without further ado, Mayor Young,
with you.
good to see you here.
All right.
I've been reading reports in the papers lately, and you sound, judging from the reports, I didn't hear your State of the City speech, but just reading the reports, it sounds as though you're getting ready to leave local politics.
Well, I'm getting ready to end my 8-year term. I've got 2 more years, and I really am anxious to leave the city in very good shape, so that I'm pushing on some things that normally I think will happen anyway in 8 or 10 years.
You're just trying to speed them up.
I'm trying to get them started in the next year or 2.
Give me a couple of, for instances.
Well, I think that high-rise housing, for instance, we're going to have to increase the density of the city of Atlanta. And I think we can do that and still maintain low-rise residential neighborhoods. But there's some areas, downtown, perhaps also midtown, where we're probably better off allowing developers to go up 8 or 10 stories and to create the kind of middle income to luxury apartments that are competitive with housing in the suburbs.
Of course, that would put people on the streets.
No, it wouldn't.
I mean, not homeless people, but people on the streets at night walking around shopping,
That's right,
looking
sure.
at things. That's
Yeah.
the kind of thing I meant.
No,
Yeah.
that would be good.
Yeah, that's what we need.
Yeah. Particularly when you build a modern urban high-rise residential community, it usually comes complete with a health club, with restaurants, with shops.
Yeah, but what do you say to those people who complain that every time you put up a new building, you tear down some trees? And Atlanta used to be so green, they say.
Well, what I think we're doing is trying to limit the footprint of the building. That's the reason I say go up. When Lenox Avenue built those condominiums along Lenox, they really paved over a lot of trees.
I live on Lenox, sir, and I have a great view of some trees, and I hope they're going to stay.
And I think they will, but when you think of the amount of asphalt as compared to what used to be, it's...
Used to be. I wanted to buy that little house on the lake when I first came to town. That's the one I wanted. Well, I live there now, right on the paved over lake.
But the thing is that I think that by going high-rise, and that's a big hurdle for us Georgians.
It goes against tradition?
Yeah, and we're used to a little plot around with a little grass, and my wife says she likes to walk out of her back door and put her feet in the dirt. And there are a lot of people like that. My children will probably just as soon live high-rise.
The reason I said you sounded like a politician ready to leave the scene is that you talked about raising taxes.
No.
The need to raise taxes. You said we're going to raise taxes.
What I said is that we're going to have to raise taxes. We've done a pretty good job of holding on to taxes because we've had a considerable amount of growth every year that I've been in office. And we started out, you know, at a time when the city was perceived to be in decline. And the first couple of years, we got about $300 million worth of building permits a year. Then in the second couple of years, it was up around 500 or 600. The last 2 years, we've done about $750 million worth of building permits. That's the only reason, that plus the sales tax is the only reason we've been able to keep control of the budget.
Well, you think that putting up these high-rise apartments will help?
I think it'll help increase the tax base, and it will, you see, right now we're 478,000 people in the city limits, but we support a metropolitan area of 2.5 million. What I see is that that metropolitan area, whether we do anything or not, is going to grow to 4 million by the year 2010. That's not long. It's 22 years.
What
say-
you're really asking for then, Mayor, is for the city now to start reaping the same rewards that outside the perimeter
Exactly.
gets. Yeah.
And to do that, I think we're going to have to change our conception, not of the whole city. See, I see right down the Peachtree Ridge. I think 1 block on either side of Peachtree is going to be high-rise regardless. But I think we can build natural barriers and we can keep the residential quality of the rest of the area, north side, and I think we're going to see that same kind of growth and development that we see going down the MARTA stations and Peachtree Street to the north, moving down to the south.
Can we help the south side? Can we
I think-
speed up the process?
Well, yeah, but you know, the people on the south side are just about like people on the north side.
I know.
My daughter built a little house, bought a little house and renovated it on the south side. And I started talking to her about some new apartments going up across the street from where she lives. Her response was, we don't need any more folk. Traffic's heavy enough down there.
Listen, that interchange down there at I-20 and 285 is as good as the Big Pretzel up north.
Sure. And, but what I think my daughter and everybody else is going to have to face is that unless we can increase our population from about 478,000, say to about 600, 650,000, maybe even 700,000, then the same group of people that have supported this entire region are going to have to continue to support it.
What does this current city council think of your projections?
Well, I don't think they can argue with them. I think those are projections that have come from the Atlanta Regional Commission, and the Atlanta Regional Commission projected that we would not get to 2 million until 1990. We got to 2 million by 1985, and we're probably going to get to 4 million before 2010.
Mm-hmm.
So those are generally conservative projections. For instance, we projected that Buckhead would have 5 to 10 million square feet of office space by this time. It now looks like it's got about 20 million square feet of office space. And another...
Are there customers for all that space?
They're filling it up. The only place where you have a significant vacancy rate now is on the perimeter. Midtown, downtown is almost completely occupied. Midtown is second, Buckhead is third, and then the perimeter.
So then the missing element to making this a complete city is to having some people living
downtown.
Sharing the experience
That's
of the
right.
city.
You got,
Creating the vitality.
Yeah, you've got 32,000 students at Georgia State. Not a single unit of housing. You've got about 15,000 at Georgia Tech. There is some housing in Georgia Tech, but Georgia Tech, Georgia State, the Atlanta University Complex, Grady, plus 30,000 government workers who work downtown alone give you a demand for about 10,000 units of housing.
Well, but how are you going to keep that housing affordable?
Well, that's what we're trying to do. First thing we've done is to make it a tax-free zone for housing so that the people who are moving into town south of North Avenue are not paying any property taxes.
You know, one of the things that made Atlanta great, that contributed to it, was the fact that it was a mecca for young people from all over the South to come
Still
and take
is.
their first job, but they can't afford to live here.
Well,
How are you going to help solve that problem?
IBM, AT&T are paying good money. You know, the new business coming in is upscale industry. And the kids that are coming in now, first-year lawyer out of law school starts out in most of these big law firms at $50,000.
Would you like to be starting out now?
No, I'm okay.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I have very few regrets. I lived, I think, in one of the most exciting times in history. And I can't imagine, if it's any more exciting in the future than it's been for me in the past, I don't know if I could stand it.
I don't think we could either, frankly. We're talking with Mayor Andy Young. We'll be back in a moment. Don't go away. young. Said he's lived an exciting life, and some of us have been privileged to spend some of that time with him, with you, sir.
Okay.
Let me talk about problems for just a moment or
Sure.
so. The homeless. Is Atlanta unique?
No. My wife is on the governor's task force on the homeless, and she said that the worst homeless conditions that she has ever seen in the United States were down along the river in Savannah. People are homeless, and there are a number of reasons for that. One, the economy has been growing at the top, but since the Democrats have been out, it hadn't been doing much for people at the bottom. We have
You
not
don't
been-
mean that as a political statement.
Yeah, I do.
Really?
Yeah.
Blame the Republicans?
Well, you have to.
Not
I mean,
really. Blame the economy.
Well, but the Republicans essentially decided that they would not put
Okay.
any money in low-income housing. Democrats always tried to find some way to help house. I mean, Democrats have to take care of people on the bottom, and because that's where our voters come from. And the Republicans have not had to take care of those folk, and so they can do things like, I mean, they don't care about plant closings. And so plants close, and people who've worked in a plant all their lives end up finding themselves out of a job, and they come here because we've got work, and we've got work, but we don't have housing.
Are you trying to tell me that this homeless population is different than the homeless population of 15, 20 years ago?
I think so.
This is larger, but it's a different kind of person?
It is. I put our homeless people in three categories. One is the people who are just, in the best sense of the word, derelict. They drink too much, they couldn't get a hold of their
Aspirations,
personal
yeah,
affairs,
yeah.
and they just kind of gave up. Now, that's what we've always had, but it was a governmental decision that closed mental institutions to help balance budgets. And so you got a lot of people that were forced, that we used to care for in some kind of institutional form, that we no longer care for. We turn them loose. And a number of people on the streets homeless are people who really need medical attention. There's a third group of people that are migrant workers. And they are the farm workers from the small towns of Georgia and Alabama that are coming to the big city for work. And they're living in shelters, but they're sending money back to their families at home. There are people who come down from Ohio and Pennsylvania where the mills steel mills have been closed. And those are people who ought to be working and want to work, and they do go out and work in the mornings.
Well, realistically, what is this city's plan for these people, if you have one?
Well, our plan is to try to care for them as well as possible, but to hope that in the very near future, the state and federal government try to come up with the resources and the programs that will help abolish the problem. We can contain the problem. We can keep people from freezing in the streets. And the economy is growing at such a rate that we can absorb a certain number of them. Our first job, which we have not been able to do, is to find low-cost housing. We've not been able to build low-cost housing in almost any city.
Is that another place where the federal government has let you down?
The federal government has let us down there, but see, I think it'd be possible for us to do that if we were able and willing to be a little more creative and take on the responsibility. We can build a house mechanically. We can do whatever's necessary to build a 3-bedroom house for $30,000. It would require housing factories. It would require
But we have the knowledge and skill to do it.
Yeah, we do.
We've done it.
And
In other areas, why not in housing?
I think we're going to have to. The city has not wanted to take on that responsibility. That's been so long a federal responsibility.
But Atlanta's not alone in that.
No, we're not.
No. Schools. What about schools? Our school system.
Well, I've had 3, 4 kids now that have come through the Atlanta school system, and I'm really proud of the school system. I think that the school system is still the cheapest and the best way out of poverty and into the mainstream of the American life.
Well, we have to convince more people of that. Are we trying?
We're sending about 52% of our 12th graders on to college now. We're sending about 10% of them to the Army, about 18% of them going to the workforce.
What you're telling me then is in the 8 years that you've been mayor of this city, you have watched the school system improve.
We've worked with the school system, and I think our teachers do a good job. And I think Alonzo Krim has done a good job. And the school board, given what they have to work with, is providing an opportunity. I bumped into a guy years ago who was a bartender and in a catering service. And he had 3 children. He'd probably never made more than $10,000, $12,000 a year in his life. He had 3 children. One graduated from Harvard Law School, the other one from Harvard Medical School, the other one getting a PhD at Notre Dame. And I said, how could you do this given your opportunity, you know, the amount of money you have? He said, look, he said, I told those children and their mama when they were little that I didn't have any money, I wasn't going to be able to educate them. They had to go to school every day and they had to study and get scholarships. Those 3 girls never missed a day of school and were never late for 12 years. And when they left Murphy High School, they had scholarship offers almost anywhere in the country, and they took advantage of it, and they did well.
You know, you don't tell that story often enough.
Well, I know.
You should. I mean, you should. You have to provide that inspirational leadership I'm looking at you for.
Yeah. Well, I tell it over and over again. I think people get sick of me talking about the success stories, but the thing about the success stories is that they're there, and they're there for a good number of our kids. But so often we focus on the ones who get pregnant and the ones who end up using drugs. But I still contend that that's a minority of our, even of our poor population. A young lady called my office last summer and said she wanted to go to college and her daddy couldn't afford to help her. Could I get her a scholarship at Fort Valley? And I said, well, I don't know anybody at Fort Valley, but I said, I know the president fairly well, but they don't really have any money. I said, do you mind going I said, if you're not afraid of the cold, if you're not afraid of rich white folks, I can get you a scholarship. So we called Swarthmore in Pennsylvania, we called Middlebury in Vermont, and we called...
You're really talking cold weather there.
We called Grinnell in Iowa.
Yeah.
She's freezing now, but she got a $15,000 a year scholarship. See, and she's doing well. She's doing so well that the school, Middlebury, has sent their recruiter down here twice to recruit other students because they were impressed with the quality of student that's coming out of the Atlanta Public Schools.
That's the Atlanta Public Schools. Great. In his term of office, we're talking with Mayor Young. Be right back. Don't go away. Mayor Young, let me ask you about progress and what do we lose sometimes through progress? Specifically, this campaign now to save Margaret Mitchell's old house. Isn't there some reason why we should save it?
Oh, yeah. There's no question that Margaret Mitchell is a historic personality. She is the person who has probably done as much for worldwide recognition of Atlanta as anybody else. It's Margaret Mitchell and Martin Luther King. The problem I have with the Margaret Mitchell house is the house itself and the money. That when Margaret Mitchell lived in it, she called it the dump. And it was a kind of a slum then. And when you look at it, you know, we're not talking about saving Tara, and we're not talking about saving a nice little bungalow like the Wren's Nest. This was an old flop house.
I understand that, but isn't there a way to reconstruct the room that she worked in and build a whole Gone with the Wind, some kind of feeling about the area?
If we could find $1.5 million to $2 million.
Really?
And
I think it's almost possible.
Well, I'm
with
hoping
public attention
so.
called
and
to
the truth of it is, the reason I agreed to start giving interviews and announcing that we were going to have to tear it down is to try to get some interest in it. And
well, there certainly is interest in it now.
Well, and I hope the interest brings in some money.
Good.
We're also trying to get the developers. See, they agreed to put the money into a park. And we're trying to get them to realize that maybe there's enough interest so that they can profit by memorializing Margaret Mitchell in some way in their development. But it doesn't come without a tremendous public response and outcry.
Well, I hope we get it.
Well, you know, I call that castle over there near the High Museum
piece of junk.
A hunk of junk.
A hunk of junk.
And
are you sorry you said that?
No. If I hadn't said it, it might have been torn down. I think because I focused attention on it and people paid attention to it, the Chamber of Commerce now is putting a couple of $1 million into it, and they're trying to make a luncheon and supper club out of it, a midtown chamber headquarters out of it. And that's going to work out very well.
How is Underground progressing?
Underground's doing great. A little slower than I'd like.
It won't be ready this summer.
Won't be ready this summer.
No part of it?
Well, part of it will be ready, and that's one of the things we've been trying to figure out, whether we can open it in stages. Maybe open the upper floors, and then as we finish the underground part, open it and as we complete a street, open that street and continue working. But I'm working with the Rouse Company. They don't want to open it until it's right. They don't want people to come in and be disappointed. Underground success is going to mean having a kind of impact that people will keep coming back. And I guess we've got enough money in it, we don't want to mess up.
There's a march scheduled for Atlanta, a march for the homeless. Do you have any part to play in that?
Well, I'm going to march with them because I think it's important for the nation to realize that there but for the grace of God go I, that any one of us could be homeless. I spent a couple of nights.
I was going to ask you, why march? Why march? Why a march?
Well, I think they want to march as a visible means or cry for support. And I'm hoping that the churches who open those kitchens, and the churches have done a marvelous job, and the synagogues here in Atlanta. The temple has a homeless shelter for families. And those people who have rallied to support the homeless need to come out and be seen. And we need to say to those people running for president that this is a problem you can't ignore if you want our vote. And you've got to begin to think.
So we're going to show this to them right before Super Tuesday.
We're going to try to show before Super Tuesday that even
make the homeless really visible.
That's right.
So they can't ignore it.
And that the homelessness is something that the nation has to deal with.
Okay, this isn't just a publicity march.
Well, yeah.
It is. Is it?
Publicity for politics.
Talking about politics, you have a preference for the presidential nomination?
I really don't. I'm trying to stay neutral because I'm the host mayor of the convention. I want everybody to feel like I'm impartial.
Yeah.
I think they're all pretty good.
Yeah, you going to stay that way?
Yeah, I think so. Even the Republicans are not all that bad, you know?
Not all of them.
Not all.
Not all of them. No. What do you see for yourself? What's your future, Andy?
I don't know, but I know it's good. I've never planned from what I was going to do next. It's always happened, and I've been lucky to be in the right place at the right time, if Atlanta keeps on doing well, there'll be something else for me to do in 1989 when I'm no longer mayor of Atlanta.
In 1889, who's going to be mayor?
I don't know, and I don't
Do you
care.
have a preference?
No, and I might not even vote.
That's not a good example, sir.
Well, it's not, but in this case,
you choose between friends?
I will be choosing between friends, and I'm going to stay. I don't want to be accused of trying to influence or pick my own successor.
Will Atlanta be in good hands if either Maynard Jackson or
Atlanta will be in good hands.
Commissioner Lomax?
Atlanta will be in good hands no matter who's the mayor, because the people of Atlanta require a certain quality. Between the people and the press and the business community, Atlanta makes good mayors. We've always done that.
How can we change our city council to be more helpful to the mayor?
I don't think you can. I think it's a necessary adversarial relationship. It's like me and my family. My wife and daughters and my son never agree with me. But we start out at opposite positions, and we usually come to a common ground that we can both live with. But in the process of arguing things out, we usually come up with a better solution than either one of us might have had. It's democracy. You know,
are you saying that you treat the city council better than you treat your tennis opponents?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I try to drive my tennis opponents in the ground.
Yeah.
But you know, the truth of it is, even my tennis opponents, I let them beat themselves. Tennis is an expression of your personality. I just try to get the ball back one more time. And that's what I do with the city council too. Keep coming back at them till, you know, we get, if not what I want, what we can all live with.
30 seconds. Your hope for the future of the city.
This is going to be a great city. Very soon, it's going to be the premier city of the 21st century. It's going to be the city that opens the United States to the economy of the world. And it's going to do for the 21st century what London did for the 17th.
Mayor Andy Young, you said it. You've listened to him. Now you know what's in the future. I'm Zeke Siegel. In the future, next week. See you then.